Alright guys, so you're here. You want to learn how to use Belial and fight Ferry. This is what you gotta do, alright? You gotta do 2U constantly in neutral, hoping to hit something, get that hard knockdown, get in, start your pressure. If that don't work, you got this button called Far 5H. You want to just press this shit randomly, constantly, until you get in on Ferry, then you kill her. And that's about it for the video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Wait, what? You guys are still here? You want me to further explain the Belial versus Ferry matchup? I mean, I thought my explanation at the beginning was pretty good, but alright, why not? Let's do it. So what's up, guys? Welcome to another video. So basically, in this video, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going over how the Belial versus Ferry matchup actually should be played, because honestly, I think it's played incorrectly from both sides. I don't really see any other Belial, at least in the NA PS4 tournament side, doing what they're supposed to be doing versus Ferry, and conversely, the Ferries I fight with the stuff that I know, they're not doing what they're actually supposed to be doing versus me. So I'm making this video to clear all that up. Now granted, it's going to be more useful to the Belial player because obviously I co-main him, so I know him a bit more, so most of the stuff I'm teaching is going to be helpful to the Belial main, but it's also going to be helpful for the Ferry main, because I want to just explain to you guys what is the mind game y'all should actually be playing in this matchup, and what you guys should actually be trying to do with the decisions you make. So I'm going to have this in 3 sections. I'm going to have the mind game at round start, because the mind game starts at the very beginning in this matchup. Then I'm going to cover how to deal with the mix-ups, how the mix-up game, mind game should even be played, because Belial has a very nice OS versus Ferry, but Ferry does have options to deal with that OS. And the last part is going to be neutral, which is basically, what your character should be doing based on their cooldowns in certain situations. What is the best option you have. Like Belial really wants to try to get in on this matchup, and Ferry of course wants to try to keep away and do the mix-ups as much as possible. Alright, so let's talk about round start. So what do Ferries normally do? They want to do maybe Far 5L. It's a good button, stops rolls, stops the run-ups. Belial wants to run up. She can do 2M to stop the roll. She can do Far 5M, she can do Far 5H. She has a lot of different buttons, right? So you want to choose your option as a Belial player, how you can beat that. So as Belial, you can do 2U, that beats her Far 5L and her 2M. So once a Ferry player sees that, right, what's their other options? They can do Far 5N, Far 5H, and if you predict they're going to do those 2 options, then you can go for a roll. And if you roll the Far 5H, you actually do get a full combo punish. You roll the Far 5M, you're not really going to get a full combo punish, but at least you'll close the distance and you'll be plus, right? That's one option you can do as a Belial player, right? You can try to make a guess there, but there are some risks to doing some of those options, right? Now, let's say you try to roll. What can the Ferry player do to stop you? Obviously, they can do Far 5L and 2M. You can be like, oh, that's not so bad. I'm going to get hit by those buttons. It's not a big deal. Well, this is what could happen. You could potentially get counter hit, get into the mix-up situation. Now, the mix-up situation is actually not all that bad for Belial for an OS I'm going to show later, but you do get yourself in a situation, so there is a risk to it. And I actually didn't know this. There actually is a pretty decent sized risk for doing a sweep. Ferry could actually call you out for it and get a full combo punish. So Ferry can potentially combo you for doing sweep and combo you for doing a roll, but then conversely, you can get your combos by doing it properly. Like if you sweep Ferry, even though it's not a combo, if Belial gets in on Ferry, it's pretty much can be game over unless she guesses right on a DP or guesses right mashing buttons, with both can lead to disastrous consequences. You can win the game. That's why this matchup is without a doubt in Belial's favor, probably a 6-4, just because Ferry has her setups and has a lot of good set play things and can keep out pretty decently. But a character like Belial, he can get in just one sweep. Even though it's not a combo, it equates to potentially a lot of damage. And while sure, Ferry can also, get her damage in these situations, like I'm going to cover in a bit when I get to the setups, her doing her setups versus Belial is really a gamble in itself. So basically you're getting a small punish with Ferry just to put yourself in another gambling situation. So if I was a Belial player and I'm seeing Ferry's, going for these options, I wouldn't really stop. I would try at round start to get the hard knockdown, get the roll forward. I would try something. Hell, if they're going to go for low buttons, you can also just jump at the round start at the beginning, because they can't really anti-air you except with EXDP. And you just jump while holding block, and if you see they press a low button, then you press a button, because you can empty jump Ferry now, because this is actually blockable in the air. So that makes this matchup even harder for Ferry. She does not have a consistent way to anti-air you. And at worst case, if you eat an EXDP, it's anti-air, it's like, well, that kind of sucks. Yes, you can throw a GG, but at the round start is not a big deal because you're not in the corner. If you're in the corner, that shit sucks. You're getting set play install. You don't want to deal with that bullshit. But mid-screen, that's not a bad option. So in this situation, if I was a Ferry player and I knew that Belial was going for these options, they're going to try to sweep my buttons, roll my buttons, honestly, I would pick option number 3 instead of going for all that. I'll just take a step back and walk back. Because in my opinion, this proposition is a losing one for Ferry. It's not a mind game that she actually wants to get into, because Belial can get a knockdown or roll a button. Any of those situations, Belial's in. Both the Ferry's options, yes, she gets a little combo, maybe she gets you in her set play, but her set play is not all that good versus Ferry. Alright, so the mix-up game. Ferry's main mix-up. She has a lot of different ones that she can do in the corner, whatever. But I'm mainly going to be focused on this one. She does EX whip, regular whip, gets you in, does EX GG. She can do a million different things off this. She can do like double low. She can do like instant overhead. If she decides to hold the GG, because she can decide when it explodes, she can do a low overhead. She can do a double low overhead. She can do a low into a throw. She has a million different mix-ups. So versus characters that really don't have a DP, can't really do much against it, not really a 50-50 as people may say. No, it ain't a 50-50. You have like a 10% chance of guessing right. Because even if you try to fuzzy block, because you can fuzzy block the low and the instant overhead, that's, she can just delay overhead, she can delay throw, so you really can't OS all the options. But Belial, he's a cool cat, he actually can. Now even some characters with DP, their DP actually loses to the instant overhead. Of course a DP would, beat the low, which of course, because that's a meaty attempt, is not really a DP safe meaty, so DP will beat that. But if the DP doesn't beat the instant overhead, then it's not really all that good to DP, it's not a good option. But some characters are lucky enough, like Catalina or Belial, that their DP actually hits Ferry when she tries to go for instant overhead. So that's already a plus for Belial. And there's even less characters that have the ability to actually press a button actually beats the instant overhead. Well, Belial is a very lucky character. His 5L beats the instant overhead, and his DP also beats the instant overhead. So Belial has a way to effectively make this mix-up that is not really a 50-50, you have like a 10% chance of guessing right, so good luck, into an actual legitimate 50-50 where he can get legit combos. So before I show you the OS, let me explain to you exactly how it works. So if Belial wakes up with far 5L, it will hit Ferry out of the instant overhead. So what can you do as a Belial to maximize the damage? You're going to want to cancel the 5L into an EX Fireball right away. So it does two things. If Ferry decides to, okay, I'm just going to bait the DP and just sit there and block, you press 5L, of course Ferry's going to end up blocking it, and when Ferry blocks or gets hit, the GG disappears. You're immediately canceling that in the EX Fireball, which means you're canceling that into potential plus frames. So that gives you the advantage and that gives you pressure. Ferry goes for the instant overhead, you do the 5L, the EX Fireball actually hits Ferry, and you can get an anti-air combo. Now another part of this OS is you have to consider what if Ferry does a spot dodge, because sometimes Ferry's like the spot dodge avoids the DP, and normally if this Ferry were to spot dodge immediately, if you're like this mashing 5L, you will end up hitting Ferry as she recovers from the spot dodge before the GG actually explodes, and you can get a combo. At first I thought that was good, but actually Ferry can do a slightly delayed spot dodge, so the GG will actually explode before her spot dodge recovers, so you can't just be mashing. Mashing is not an option. So the way you do the OS, you gotta press 5L, cancel in the EX Fireball, confirm that they do not actually get hit by it, that they're trying to spot dodge, and then you immediately go for the throw. And since spot dodge is not immune to a throw, you get the throw, GG goes away, you get your damage, and you get in. The only thing that loses to is if Ferry does, 2L, 2L, a 5H meaty, something like that, to actually meaty you. If Ferry does not go for a meaty, doesn't matter what they do, Ferry can try to backdash, they can try to walk back, it don't matter. The 5L will connect in some capacity and end their mix-up and put you in advantage. So let me just show you that it works. So I'm gonna have Ferry do her little mix-up. So you see right there, Ferry went for the instant overhead, got hit out of it, and I got a pretty decent combo for it. And I can actually combo that in the SSBA, SBA, or whatever. So now I'm gonna have Ferry, what if she does it and decides to block? So either way, I give myself plus frames, GG goes away, I can go for a throw, a grab, or whatever. So the best way to practice this OS is have Ferry do the instant overhead, have her block in one other option, and then have her do a delayed spot dodge as the other option, and just keep practicing it until you get it right. It's actually not that hard. Now it's funny, as I was recording the OS, I was having a little bit of trouble, doing far 5L, I was canceling into the EX Fireball even on whiff. And then I was noticing, as I just showed you, that even though they spot dodge, that you're able to combo them with EX Fireball. The EX Fireball actually counter hits them if they go for a delayed spot dodge. And I just looked, and the reason is, because when you throw the EX Fireball, it actually takes Belial a step forward, so he actually avoids the GG long enough that even though it explodes, Ferry will still recover from her spot dodge and you'll actually be able to hit her. So that actually makes this OS even easier. You don't actually have to go for the grab, even though you could go for the grab as well. So basically all you do is you do your 5L, normally you cancel it into EX Fireball. You do it the same, you just try to do like a little bit of a later cancel. So if the 5L whiffs, the EX Fireball will still come out and you actually will still hit Ferry. Alright, so you know that OS, it's great. If you think they're gonna go for a meaty, then you just do DP, that beats the overhead option as well. So that makes it a legitimate 50-50. Now, if you're the Ferry player, you have to realize what is going on. You may not understand. The only one that knows about this OS is Flower Man. And Flower Man, he punishes me heavily for trying to mash. And that's what you gotta do. If you're the Ferry player, you know Belial knows this mix-up. Never ever go for the instant overhead. Let me tell you why you should never go for it, because I just explained it. If the Belial does a DP, the instant overhead, it loses. If the Belial presses the button, you get anti-air full combo, and that's like 2700. They have super, you get a lot more damage. So going for an overhead doesn't make any sense. There's only two things you should be doing. You should either block, because clearly spot dodge is not going to save you. The EX Fireball is still going to hit you in that OS, and you're going to get full comboed. So you're going to either block to try to bait the DP, or you're gonna do your max possible punish. And what is that beautiful punish? Now I don't remember exactly the combo that Flower Man does, but I have a pretty good grasp of what it's supposed to look like. So this is what you should do as Ferry if you see Belial going for this OS. So yeah, ouchie, that actually hurt. That was like 4200 damage for me trying to do this OS. That's actually more damage than I would get if the Ferry went for the instant overhead, unless of course I had super or whatever. But that was just without super for Ferry. So you can add a super and do even more damage, do combos in the set play, blah blah blah. That's what you should be doing as Ferry if you see a Belial knows his OS, because let me tell you, that's actually really good for the Ferry. Because let's say you're the Ferry player, you decide to block, they don't do a DP, and they do 5L into the EX Fireball. Like, okay, they're going to get plus frames, they're going to get his pressure, maybe he gets you in a throw or two. Okay, yeah, he gets in. That kind of sucks, but you're not taking any direct damage because you chose to block. If you decide to go in with a 5H, and then Belial does a DP, well, okay, you get hit with a DP. I mean, he gets a little bit of Oki from a DP, unless he does EX. EX, he gets a little better from that, but if he does a regular DP, he doesn't get all that much. Not too much risk on your part. So as a Ferry player, you're taking very minimal damage. You're not taking big damage, and the Belial player, either way he guesses wrong, right? You block the DP, you get big damage. You counter hit him for the jab, you get even bigger damage. And once this happens, you actually start playing the mind game properly. Because then, this is what the Belial player will be doing. They'll be like, oh, okay, you're not going for the instant overhead no more. You're just either going for a meaty or blocking. You know what? I'm just gonna sit here and block because you're not gonna overhead me, so I'm not scared. I'll take a little bit of chip and I'll be safe. And then that opens up Belial just chilling and blocking low because the Ferry has been conditioned not to do the overhead. Then comes the adaptation. The Ferry may start going for throws, going for an overhead maybe going for a meaty, going for an overhead, blah, blah, blah. Just opens up different mix-ups, and then once again that opens up Belial being able to do that OS and maybe get a counter hit because he went for an overhead, or get a counter hit because he went for a throw, and you can't meaty throw in this game. So that's how the mind game's actually supposed to be played. So Belial players, learn this OS. It's actually not that hard. I thought it was kind of hard because I thought you had to like throw in there, but you don't gotta even do that. You just do 5L cancel. You're just canceling slightly late, and it just like works out perfectly. And you get the anti-air combo, the EX fireball hits Ferry if they spot dodge. So you're golden at that point. And it's up to the Ferry player to adapt. And like I said, the only one who knows how to deal with that properly and does that 5H combo, that's Sir Flower Man. Because, you know, I told him about the OS, he's seen as I do it. He's seen me do it, and he's like, alright, he went to the lab, see where the best counter is, and he countered that shit real good. So he's the only one that does that. And I want to see all you Ferry players do that to me, and I want to see all your Belial players doing this OS. Alright, so we're going to talk about the neutral. And the neutral, you know, basically what are the goals, right? You know, Belial, he wants to get in with his far 5H. He wants to stay in this far 5H range, threatening Ferry the most. And Ferry wants to be like, pretty much here or here, just stay as far away as possible, you know, maybe get an EX whip conversion here and there, go for a mix-up, or decide to go for damage instead or whatever. Honestly, if you're a Belial player, I always follow the same concept I went over on what you want to do on round start. You want to see what the Ferry likes to press a lot and just choose your times when to roll, when to sweep, because you just need one knockdown or one good roll and you're in at that point. You want to get in this far 5H range. You can actually afford to jump a lot. Like at these ranges over here, you can jump. Right now with the Ferry nerfs, there's literally nothing she can actually do to stop you from doing this. There's nothing she can do. She can 2H, but you can just block it. You just have to be smart enough not to commit to a button. What you want to do is you just want to jump. If you see Ferry toss out a whip or press a really big button and you see, aha, I jumped over it, then you can land with a button because you ain't gonna have enough time to DP you, especially with her DP being 11 frame. So that's what you want to do. Now jumping like at this range, you're gonna get yourself EX DP'd. It's not the best idea. And why would you jump at this range? Because all you have to do is just take a little step forward, micro steps so you don't get hit by anything, and look at that, you're in far 5H range. Now as a Ferry player, you're gonna have to want to know that. You're gonna know they're gonna want to do that far 5H as their longest reaching button, and that they're gonna want to get in using that. So I'm gonna give you a little example, right? So Ferries, you know, a lot of times they try to take back their turn or whatever, they do a little auto combo, do this little spin move, and you know, they create space. This is normally a pretty good space versus most characters. Ferry has the advantage, she can do her 2U, blah blah blah, or whatever. Now obviously she is minus, but versus Belial, as you can see, you're in far 5H range. There is nothing that Ferry can press in this situation that will beat far 5H. So what can the Ferry player do? Well, the Ferry player, they can know you want to do far 5H. They can spot dodge. If you spot dodge a far 5H at the right timing, then both hits whiff and you can get a full combo punish. Now of course you can do that, right? But then that unlocks the next level. Belial can just sit there and be like, alright, this lady's trying to bait me to do a far 5H. They can just chill, wait for you to spot dodge, and then they could punish you with a far 5H. And doing the spot dodge is even more dangerous in the corner. If the Belial reads it properly, he could actually get a really big punish for it. So on the Ferry side, doing a spot dodge, it's a really good option. You can really get a good punish for it. But once you do it once, the Belial player can try to make a read on when you're going to spot dodge, on when he would normally do an obvious far 5H, resist the urge to do it, Sir Belial mains. And then you can react and punish the spot dodge. But that's not actually all bad. You can use the threat of the spot dodge. In those situations, the Ferry can just back up and escape because you're the Belial player, you don't want to get hit by a full combo, and the Belial player wants to get that big counter hit damage of punishing a spot dodge. You could just, with Ferry, just back up, or hell, you can even run forward and try to do some pressure. It makes the Belial stand still for a second and gives you time to escape. So it's important to establish that mind game, even though it has some risk to it. Don't do spot dodge all the time, and Belial players don't do far 5H all the time. It just establishes the mind game. It's the mind game that you guys should actually be playing in this matchup. And in my opinion, with the EXDP for Ferry, you should really be saving this as an anti-air, because that's your only real anti-air. It's actually really good. You can use it to react to the stomp and just like anti-air him out of this. That's one of his main pressure tools, and if you're good at reactions and if you're just specifically looking for it, you can definitely EXDP it. Using it randomly on defense, you may have to do it sometimes because, let's be honest, Belial is very oppressive. As a Ferry main, you'll be a 6-frame character, even less likely to escape from it. It's just not a good situation. You don't want Belial near you, but it is going to happen. I don't want to say not to EXDP because you might have to sometimes, but just be very careful. If you can, just really try to save it for anti-airs. Because if you don't have it, there's nothing to stop Belial from jumping at you. I mean, yeah, you can do air throws or whatever, but that's not 100% consistent because this button exists. So yeah, if he jumps from this range, you ain't gonna air throw this, man. That's just not gonna happen. If he jumps from here, yeah, okay, you can. But if he jumps from this far, that just ain't gonna happen. And you know, your 2H doesn't actually work anymore, so I would try to save your EXTP just specifically for anti-airs. And just be careful with Belials. Like, I don't see them doing this too much, but really, don't be predictable if you're Ferry, because if they're predictable, there's no reason why Belial should not be doing to you a lot in neutral. I know I said that in the beginning of the video as a joke, but it's serious, yo. Like, Ferries a lot will try to do this button to stop the roll, but this beats it clean. This beats it clean 100%. And even like from all the way over here, you get a knockdown, you're in. You're in, you start your pressure, you do what Belial wants to do. He just needs to get in one time to win the match. So if you're a Ferry player, you gotta be very careful with what buttons you use versus Belial, especially if they're going for this. But ultimately, I can't really think of a way for Ferry just to completely prevent that from happening. She's gonna have to press those buttons, but all I can say is don't be predictable, don't have a pattern. The other person's gonna notice it if they're a smart player, and they will punish you for it. You gotta make sure to mix that shit up, because this matchup really is a game of mind games. Once you understand the OSs, what buttons beat what and whatnot, it's all mind games. Now, yes, most times it is in Belial's favor, but it's definitely winnable for the Ferry side. And you guys, you Belials, yo, I don't want you guys being hit by like some random mix-ups that should not be hitting you, man. You have this OS, you have a DP that's godlike, yo, use it. I don't want to see no Belial ever hit by this unless their DP is on cooldown. There is like no reason for that to ever hit you, sir. And one last thing before the video ends, I found this new setup. I actually just posted it on Twitter. It's not a DP safe setup, but it's a fake punishable setup. It uses his medium DP on whiff where he's actually plus. Now, even though it's not DP safe against 9-frame DP characters, it's DP safe versus Ferry, so I'm gonna show it in this video cause fuck Ferry, right? So that's gonna be it for the video today. If you guys enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you guys next time.